Technology that we keep busting out is really something. You look like you're about to play World of Warcraft or something.
Yeah, well, I'm at Noah's Dungeon Studio. So we're trying out some new technology. I had some complaints. We had some Monksters with some complaints.
Really? Nobody complained.
Of last, I'm not naming names, but there was definitely some comments backing up my greatest fears.
I don't know, dude.
On the inner sanctum, but it's really about my confidence. So if I'm not feeling confident about the way it's going to sound, I hold back. I'm not sure how loud I should be. And I don't
know. Most people were like, it's the singer, not the song, that makes the music move along, But,
True enough. But here we are, another week. But, everyone in your house is ill, which was your reason for...
Poor Erin is upstairs, like spinning around in her own filth up in the bed.
No,
she got a positive flu test yesterday.
Oh, no.
Yeah, which means my positive flu test is shortly behind. Let me put this out for the Monksters. So last night, I come up to go to bed, and she's in bed. She's like, I don't want to get you sick. I'm like, we live in the same house. We breathe the same air. If I'm going to get sick, I'm going to get sick. She's like, I'm going to go downstairs and sleep on the couch. And I'm like, no, don't do that. You're sick. Stay in bed. I'll go pull out the thing in the basement and sleep on that. And she's like, no, I can't. I'm the only one that can sleep on the couch. I like to sleep on the couch. So she went and slept on the couch. Am I a bad person for allowing that to happen?
No, I wouldn't say that. At this stage in your life and relationship, she can make her own decisions. If she doesn't want to do it, she'll just say, Mike, I'm not doing that. You're a schmuck,
Right. I mean, I would never suggest that she go down and sleep on the couch, but I was fine sleeping in bed. I'm like, I usually face the other direction. There's circulation in there. I don't know. Yeah. I'm going to get sick. My only hope is that I get sick like Thursday or Friday, because this weekend we're supposed to go to that couple's bachelor party in the Catskills. And anything I can do to get out of that, including having the flu, would be fucking fantastic.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun, sort of, or the start of a horror movie.
It's terrible. I'm going to have to hang out with like a whole bunch of my wife's sister's fiance's friends who are all like 32, and they're all cops and jail guards, corrections officers.
Geez, so how are you going to drop the news like early on to like not come after you with the megaphone and like a tray of shots?
Yeah, well, I'm old enough to be their dad, so I can just tell them, like, kids, just leave grumpy Uncle Mark alone, because he's going to go out and take pictures of birds while you all sit here and do shots.
You should just bring a copy of the Sunday New York Times, sit down, put your glasses on, and
right,
like my dad.
What's a 4-letter word for for alcoholic?
What?
Lush, I think. I don't know. I just made that up off the top of my head.
Did you?
Yeah, not really.
I wonder.
Although here's a joke. What do you get when you mix a duck with a squirrel?
What?
A nutquacker.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh. So it's the end of the year, and Ben and I were doing a science experiment for the end of school, and we attempted to weigh a rainbow.
Really?
Yeah. Turns out it was pretty light.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I wish I could find out what happened to my neighbor who couldn't pay his mortgage.
Oh, yeah.
Foreclosure. Yeah. The only cycling I'm doing this summer is between mania and depression. Wrong one. Anyway, sorry. That's it. Why don't you start the show? And the painful joke part is over, Christine.
And we're back. Welcome to Recovery in the Middle Ages, the podcast about two middle-aged suburban dads in the pursuit of life, love, and recovery. I'm Nat X.
And I'm Mike, the nutquacker.
Boy, we have a show for you. Today on RMA, Nat and Mike return again for another week. This is a reweek of addiction, recovery, entertainment. Stand back, be amazed as we discuss, this time for sure, the Netflix documentary, Take Your Pills, Adderall. And longtime friend of the show and Monkster to the stars, Who's joining me today?
Allan.
Allan, the wizened one.
Stop right there. Stop right there.
What?
I think it's Wizened one.
I was just thinking about this, and you and I had this debate. So I've been saying wizened because I heard it on a British audiobook.
Oh,
but you're probably right.
They take whizzes.
Right. So it's possibly one of those things that has a different pronunciation across the pond. Wizened. The wizened one, the wizard of the Monksterverse, Allan, joins us today to catch up with Meet a Monkster. All this and more today on a very special edition of RMA.
Hey, if two vegans get pissed off at each other, is it still called a beef?
Yeah.
Sorry, I left that one to the end. Yeah, Allan's got some long time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he's been sober for like 150 years or something.
Yeah, he's going to tell you a bit about him, and he's just been such a huge addition to the Rat Pack on the interstate. A lot of sobriety, just interesting. Really, a lot of great thoughts. One of the great thinkers, you would say.
Yeah, I mean, he came up on the Lower East Side in Manhattan and had experiences like that. I don't know. You remember Jiva G, who we interviewed a few weeks ago from the Hare Krishna movement? Like that was her scene down there, you know, in the late 70s, early 80s. That whole whole punk scene, and you know. So I always loved, because I lived in that neighborhood for a while, but well after it was cool and started gentrifying. And so I always love hearing tales from the old guard of folks that lived down there when it was really like a war zone and kind of crazy town. So
yeah, it's one of those times in history. Like sometimes I think about when the beat poets like Allen Ginsberg and all those guys were just percolating, you know, those types of times and that I think about. It's almost mythological, and that's one of those times, you know.
I don't think Allen's quite as old as Allen Ginsberg.
There's so much rich, like addict art, you know, like hip hop history. There's so much really. It's like basically the bleeding edge of popular culture and
the bleeding edge of popular culture. Certainly true about hip hop in the 80s.
Welcome to all the Monksters listening stateside, around the world, down the street, across the table, and right next door. Welcome all. Settle in, buckle up, and get ready for excitement, comedy, tragedy, intrigue, mystery, and so much more. Where can they find us, Mike? I haven't read that in a while.
Wow. I mean, you surprised me with that. I am completely unprepared to respond to that. I would tell you to go to Recovery in the Middle Ages or middleagesrecovery.com, but I don't think we have a website.
Yes, we have a website.
We have a website. Is it middleagesrecovery.com?
Middleagesrecovery.com.
You can tell how often I go to the website.
That's right. We visited Podbean, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and more.
Oh.
What?
You should pull up the Podbean app. We got a review on Podbean.
Really?
Did you even know that was possible?
I thought it might be, but I don't have the app.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
I go to the website. Well, actually, let me see. Yeah, we've got a couple of nice reviews. Great reviews will be read on the air. So if you can go to Apple Podcasts app, or I guess Podbean, Spotify lets you review. Give us a great review. 5 stars lets you go all the way. And you can get on the air reading that review. So go ahead and do it.
Podbean is a great app, but I have to say, I mean, it's a great hosting platform, but I really have, I found it. You want me to do it?
Yes. So we got a review.
This is from Melissa K., who we may know from such places as Discord.
She's the den mother of the Monkster.
I don't know. You might want to clear that description with her. I cannot remember how I ran across RMA, but so thankful I did. Was immediately hooked. I love the different recovery approaches discussed and the honest, witty banter of the hosts. A breath of fresh air compared to the strict suggestions I was previously taught. Suggestions, in quote. Love the Discord group. Feels like family. What are you doing?
Somebody just joined the Discord and they're all welcoming him, and it just popped up on my phone. So I was like, "Oh, I'll send a picture while they're welcoming him."
Okay. Thanks, Melissa. I appreciate the review. It's awesome. Melissa went out and wrote a review, and I'm sure if she was listening on Apple iTunes, she would have given us 5 stars. So why don't the rest of you, for good people out there who are listening, go give us some stars?
Yes.
It doesn't cost anything, really. Just sprinkle stars on your favorite podcast.
Pixie dust.
Having trouble getting my words out this morning. Someone stole my thesaurus, so I have no words to describe how I feel.
Thesaurus.
That's the last one.
That is it.
So, kind of a nutty little weekend, huh? Do you want to talk about going to the rock and roll festival with your son for like an entire day and night?
Yeah, I had one of the craziest weekends ever, and none of it had to do with work. So usually I get at least somewhat of a day to just kind of recharge, relax, maybe a couple of hours. So this weekend there's this band, Noah, who's 12, is starting to get into music, which I think was cool. And then I started to realize that it meant I'm going to have to start schlepping him to these concerts and things. But there's this band from England called Lovejoy that he really, really likes this band. And he's been showing me the music for the past, 6 months. And then when a show came up that they were playing, because they don't play a lot, he really wanted to see it. And one time, we said no the first time. We're like, no, it's too soon. And, there was a bunch of reasons. And then it came around at one of these music festivals. So I don't know if everyone knows these types of things. The rock festivals, it's sort of like holdovers from like Woodstock type stuff. It's a festival. It's all outside.
I think people probably know what a rock festival is now.
You'd be surprised. I was telling somebody the other day, and they looked so confused, and so I had to sit there and describe.
Because they live in Oyster Bay, probably.
Yeah, so
people here are very confused.
Yeah, it's a 3-day festival, and so we got a ticket for him, and it was supposed to be him, a friend, and then me, and it turned out to just be me and Noah. So it was a lot of fun, but it was like we took a train. It was right by the World's Fair. So it was like where there's MetLife Stadium, and then there's Arthur Ashe, where the UST Open happens. It's in this big field by the World's Fair, and there's 3 big stages, and it was just like people everywhere dressed up like it was some kind of weird rock rave. Like people wear these outfits.
Younger crowd or?
Oh yeah, it's all kids. 12 years old till 18, and then their parents, basically.
Wow.
But it was really cool. It was just, all day, but it was really, really cool to see him getting his first dose of the bands he likes. And, the drinking was pretty crazy, but it didn't get bad till later on, from like 11 o'clock in the morning till about 4 or 5 o'clock. It was totally, it didn't bother me at all. But once the sun started to go down and the bigger bands were arriving, I could feel it getting crazier. And like there was plumes of pot smoke everywhere type of thing. And so, we got out of there at around, I think, like 8 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Had he ever seen a live band like that before?
Well, not really. He says he doesn't count the Weird Al concert we went to. So if you don't count Weird Al playing B-sides and songs you've never heard of, this is really his first band show,
So when did Lovejoy come on? Were they like in the middle of the day, or did they?
They were like the third band. So we got there, around the second band. We schlepped over to the stage. And that was it. It was like, they played 40 minutes maybe. And then it was like, okay, now what do we do?
Right.
So we were just kind of checking out other bands. It was pretty cool. My wife's cousin was working the merch table, and her dad was like the head of security or something.
Oh.
So he was driving us around.
Man, you guys know everybody. You know, like the fucking Turkish ambassador to get you into the White House. I mean, what the fuck? Like, you guys are connected up the ass.
Yeah, well, I don't always love it. Sometimes you just want to, I hate asking for favors and stuff like that. And some people are like, oh, just ask him to get VIP or something. I'm like, I don't want to be that guy.
Wow, VIP for Lovejoy.
Yeah, I know, right? You probably meet him at the merch table. I told Noah.
I got a notification from that theater in Port Washington yesterday that Henry Rollins is coming to do his spoken word thing in like November. He was the lead singer for Black Flag and other bands. I vaguely remember some sort of controversy around him. I'm not sure why or what that's all about. So forgive me if I'm, I always knew him as sort of like the Black Flag frontman who then became a social critic and said some pretty cool shit. But I noticed the ticket prices on that were like $30, $50, but you could get a meet and greet with Henry Rollins for 160, which didn't seem like a lot to me. And he would it's like picture with Henry Rollins. Henry Rollins will sign your boobs. No, he will sign your laminate, like all this like stuff that you get. And I'm like, wow, Henry Rollins is cheap. Like $160. Like you try that thing with like the Grateful Dead or something. And it's like, it's $600, $700, $800. So
yeah, well, that sounds about like the same rate we got for Anakin Skywalker. So like 100. No one wanted to go meet the guy who Hayden Christensen at some one of these Comic Cons, which I have to go to eventually. Comic Con's my next thing that I want to do that I never did.
Yeah,
and it was like $170 for Hayden Christensen. Like takes a picture with you, signs something, and I'm like, no, this is not going to be fun. You're going to be disappointed, and everything you want is going to cost an extra $50. And, we'll go to one closer to home. Yeah. But that was a good time. He got a lot of merch. I got in trouble for buying too much merch. So he got some band shirts, and we made a memory out of it.
Yeah, that's cool. I took Ben to U2 when they were at Nassau Coliseum a couple years ago. He freaked out as soon as he was too young. He was like, I don't know, he's probably like 8 maybe or 9. Yeah. And as soon as they started, it was so loud. We were right on the side of the stage that he just went running out into the hallway because of Nassau Coliseum, because he's like, the bass is making my heart funny. So I brought some noise canceling headphones. So I stuck those on him, and I pressed play on Europe 72, the Dead album, and he went right to sleep. He slept through the whole show. I brought him and Jack both to Paul Simon on his last tour, because I'm like, someday maybe that'll be relevant to them in some way that they got to do that. But
yeah, it's loud. I mean, that's the thing about these shows, and even for the kids, like you can feel the kick drum from 200 feet away from the stage, and so we didn't bring earplugs like schmucks, because I should have known. I always bring earplugs to rehearse with bands, to see bands. So we did for some reason. And so in order to get up close, he really wanted to be close. We had to buy earplugs, and they were $30 each, of course.
Wow. That's insane. But yeah,
they're nice. They came with a case and everything.
I guess when you know better, you do better.
That's true.
Sometimes doing better, though, depends on what tools are available to you. In your case, you had no tools available to you. You had to buy the tools. Right? While you were there. As two men in recovery from alcohol use disorder, we know how difficult it can be to seek help for a disease that's so stigmatized. But if you're struggling to get sober, SoberLink can help. SoberLink's remote alcohol monitoring system was specifically designed to help in your recovery. Not just some breathalyzer you buy at the store, small enough to fit in your pocket and discreet enough to use in public or in front of your kids. Hey, you could have used a SoberLink device in front of your kid at the rock show. But you guys didn't drive. Right. We
didn't drive. We took the train. But still, if I'm trying to prove, and let me tell you, I could have easily snuck off to one of the million bars and had a drink. So what if I was in that situation where nobody believed me? Then I could do the little breathalyzer, carry it with me, and prove it.
It's true, because SoberLink devices combine facial recognition, tamper detection. So you couldn't break it and say, hey, look, it's blowing a 0. And real-time results, so friends and family know instantly that you're sober and working towards your recovery goals. This system would have been a game changer for Nat and I during early recovery, when every bit of accountability helps.
Damn right.
Yeah, I can't think of a better tool for tracking and sharing progress or rebuilding trust in relationships. Make 2023 a memorable one. Visit www.soberlink.com/middle-ages to sign up and receive $50 off your device.
Strong enough for a man and pH balanced for a woman. SoberLink. Go to SoberLink, fill out the form, read up about it, and use the magic word recovery-ages, and check it out. They're a big sponsor. They're the biggest sponsor we have. So thank you, SoberLink. Check them out.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
We also got a long email.
Oh yeah.
This week. I sent you a screenshot of it. I'm not sure if this guy copied you. Do you want to hear some of it?
Yeah. Is it?
What's that?
Is it just like one of those Nigerian?
No.
Yeah, okay.
This is a real one.
Okay.
This is from, I'm going to call him Steve.
Steve.
That's his name. I can't read this whole thing. It's long. Mike and Nat, I've been sitting on this email for months now, waiting for the perfect time to send it. Well, here I am, finally getting around to letting you guys know how much you guys and the Monkster universe have helped me stay sober for almost a year and a half.
Wow.
Better late than never, or so they say. Year and a half. Okay. My story wouldn't be picked up for a documentary on recovery. In fact, I have no true horror stories to speak of, and I wouldn't say I hit what people usually think of as a rock bottom. I'll try to keep it brief, as there's over 20 years to unpack in my journey to sobriety. I'll start at the end. The day I made the decision to stop drinking. December 26th, 2021. Yes, the day after Christmas. A Christmas where I woke up still drunk from Christmas Eve, quickly fixing myself an Irish coffee to make me right. A Christmas spent most of the day slugging 7% IPAs, switching to vodka mixed with Sunkist Zero by myself, watching football in the basement, away from my family. Side note, how many Monksters out there laugh at how shitty their last drink was?
All of us.
All of us, yeah. And finally, a Christmas where I was barking like a dog at my wife in the middle of the night. This is what I was told on December 26th, as I have no recollection of doing this. It was that morning I told my wife that I was going to stop drinking. And it was more than the usual lip service I had paid her for the previous 10-ish years. I had a bad experience a couple of months prior to that Christmas, Halloween 2021. I was watching football and drinking all day, and when 6 p.m. rolled around, I realized I was way drunker than I planned to be for trick-or-treating. I was visibly and audibly shithoused going through the neighborhood with my kids, wife, and some friends. I felt like a piece of shit the next day and stealthily searched for ways to stop drinking. In incognito mode, of course, so my secret would never be revealed. Something that came up in that search was Annie Grace's book, which I devoured in 2 days. Her message really resonated with me while I was in my vulnerable state, but I continued to drink for the next 2 months as I always had. When I made the decision to stop, I went back to this naked mind, which led me to her podcast, which led me to you guys. And he goes on, and there's a lot of stuff in his story. Maybe we could get into some of that last time, but he leaves with a final question, and a question that maybe we should address, throw out to the audience, perhaps for follow-up on a future show. I'll leave you with one final question. I get the sense that both of you view alcohol as complete poison with no beneficial qualities. That is how I view alcohol now. And I want to get on my soapbox to tell everyone I know the harm they're doing to themselves. How do you guys go about interacting with friends and family that drink and hold back from being preachy? Steve.
Yeah.
How do you do that, Nat?
Well, it's a bit of an art. Everyone I speak to, I try and read the room. That's basically what I do. Most of the time, I just want people to have a good time. I'm not trying to impose whatever, sanctions I put on myself or, I try not to give people a hard time about it, and nobody likes it. What I do is I look for people who appear to not be wanting to drink as much as they are. You know what I mean? And for the most part, listen, I don't have any moral objection to alcohol. In fact, it's a lot, if you think of it like a medicine, medicines all have side effects. So alcohol, maybe it does help pass a quick anxiety or something like that, as we all used to drink for. But really, the cost-benefit analysis for me was it did more harm than good. But, that's for me. So if someone else wants to drink and that's how they have fun, good for them. It's not up to me to push anything on anyone.
It's tough though, right? Because when you get through the Annie Grace approach, you realize, that shit gets into your brain and it retrains you to see alcohol as an addictive poison with no redeeming qualities whatsoever. I mean, that's part of the magic of why the Annie Grace approach works.
Pull back the veil. You're being fooled type of thing.
I mean, whenever I see somebody in my family or one of my friends take a drink, my first inclination is I want to rip it out of their hands and pour it down the drain and say, "You're killing yourself." But then I would just look like a complete lunatic. Yeah. So I don't do that, right? I mean, I screwed up with my wife a couple of weeks ago. I told, I think I might have mentioned this before. I told my son, we were having this conversation. I was like, alcohol is bad for you. It's really good. It should, wine should be illegal. As my wife was pouring herself a glass of wine.
Right.
So I'm like, that must have come across as me being a real dick and a half, which is not really how I intended it. But, despite having a live and let live mindset, I have to admit to myself that I would be happier if the people around me never drank at all. If my son didn't drink, that would be great. If my wife didn't drink, that would be great. I mean, and these are not people that drink out of control.
Right.
It's just, and so that's really my shit, right? Like I'm the one that has to deal with those feelings inside me that make me nervous and anxious. And some of that is a carryover from watching my mother drink when I was a kid and never knowing like what person I was going to be interacting with, because she was always going to be drunk. She was either going to be nice mom or scary mom, But I read a quote from a guru in India. This is the guy that Steve Jobs like went off to try and find in India. He's Neem Karoli Baba. And he said to Krishna Das, who later became the kirtan guy, who plays a lot of kirtan. You know what kirtan is? It's like
I don't. What is it?
It's like like at the end of like a yoga class, like somebody gets on the squeeze box and then you chant.
Right.
That's like kirtan, and kirtan is also like the Hare Krishna is singing Hare Krishna, whatever. Anyway, that was that guy's guru also, but he said that you have to realize that my job isn't to change people. My job is to love people. Which I guess is meet people where they are and deal accordingly. And then my other favorite Eastern philosopher, Brad Warner, who wrote a book called Hardcore Zen. The title of his first book second book is just called "Don't Be a Jerk," right? And I guess that's ultimately that's the philosophy to live by, right? Like, don't be an asshole.
That sums it up. And it's funny because I had the same conversation with my Sunday school class this Sunday because we were talking about
kids. Don't be an asshole.
Basically, I'm like, well, what do we believe? We were doing like the end of the year kind of wrap up, and I wanted them to put on a passport. It's like your passport to go around and be a good Christian, and how do we live and stuff. And then, it's just the basics: love your neighbor, that stuff. And I said, but it's not up to us to go around pointing out where other people aren't doing that. You're just trying to show, by example that the love and the treating people right, but you don't have to. It's not up to us to go around saying you go to hell, you go to heaven.
Right.
Went on a thing probably they didn't care, but about how we just have to love everyone, meet them where they are, and show them. And I do that with recovery and anything that makes people super uncomfortable. You catch more flies with honey, and people watch what you do and not what you say. I think that's important. So just try and lead by example, and just hope for the best for people. It's just harder when it's a loved one who you're watching, drink and, you don't want them to get sick or do something bad for them. So that's where it gets hard for me.
Yeah. I mean, it comes from a place of love, generally. But, I also think the temperance movement would have been more successful had it not been mostly like church folks going around with axes, like walking into saloons and like swinging them at beer barrels. That's not going to win over hearts and minds.
Well, wasn't the best approach, But I think we have enough data and reality behind us that, once they've had enough, great. And in the meantime, just be careful. Enjoy yourself, but, think about your health and what's really good for you. It's just hard to fight that social, the social pressure to drink. It's everywhere. And so that's real art.
Really is. Except at the Hare Krishna festival I went to this weekend.
No drinking?
No drinking there. 20,000 people parading down Fifth Avenue, pulling these giant carts with the deities on them, dancing down the street. And, the Christians have these 4 regulative principles. No drinking or intoxicants is one of them. So I'm like, I'm already in with those guys for that. And then there's got to be vegetarian. You don't misuse sexuality, and don't gamble. Right? And I'm good with most of those.
What about the funny haircut? Do you do one of those?
No, that's not really required for membership. It's
choice,
they were a little more fanatic in the early 70s. Things have kind of mellowed out, but. So I took Ben and Aaron and I went down there, and Ben and Aaron's been like lying up there with a fever going, the Hare Krishnas gave me the flu. I'm like, it's probably, the fact that you were in the subway twice, like holding on to those subway railings is what gave you the flu. It's not the Hare Krishnas.
That'll do it. I'm surprised I didn't get sick. Well, what did Ben think of the, I saw some of the pictures you posted. It looked like a lot of fun.
It is fun. It's fun. Those people are great. They're the friendliest, warmest, most welcoming people in the universe. It was a good time. Ben was not like overwhelmed by the the scene. I think he kind of came for the vegetarian food, and we ended up getting online and getting the food from like this guy who was sort of doing a Jamaican Caribbean island riff on vegetarian food. I mean, they were Hare Krishnas too, but like, and I think that wasn't as good as the Indian vegetarian food, which was a different line that was much longer. So I think after he ate that, and it was like 85 degrees and he was hot and there was a lot of walking, and I think he had it. He didn't want to watch the people dancing by on Fifth Avenue. So, it's like the third year we've gone down for that. I kind of like the scene. It's fun.
Yeah. So I was at this rock festival. You're at a Hare Krishna festival. They should put it together and have a rock Hare Krishna. I'm sure they do that.
Well, I mean, that's how the Krishnas, I mean, not to get weird, long-winded about it, but that's how they first came to America. Prabhupada went out to San Francisco and they put on this huge rock festival at the Avalon Ballroom with the Grateful Dead and Janis Joplin and everybody. And then everybody chanted Hare Krishna for an hour, and it was like a beautiful, it was a loving kind of scene. So isn't that nice?
That's nice.
So it's just about time to welcome our guest.
Don't you have some music for this?
Yeah. Oh, it says guest right there. So he's there. So this is perfect. As soon as he has to let himself in. I don't know how to let anybody in. Oh, there he is. Okay.
Here I am.
It works.
It works. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Loud and clear.
There you go.
So this is our Meet a Monkster segment.
There's supposed to be music. Yes. Meet a Monkster. Yeah.
Allan, how are you?
I'm all right. Good morning. I'm missing my bridge in my front teeth, so I apologize if I sound a little lispy. But we're getting it put back in later this week. So
no worries.
Yeah, just
the show must go on.
Just another day, right? Yeah. So yeah, this is great. Hi guys.
Hey, we were just talking about how the background and like how interesting being in the city and the times that you were in, and just kind of like romanticizing that whole era that you talk about that you were through and stuff like that. So we're excited to talk to you.
Yeah, sure. It's funny. I was talking to some people, I don't know, in the last couple of weeks, they were talking about romanticizing a drink or a drug or whatever it is, right? And I was like, I think what I'm really romanticizing is being 19 again, and that involved a lot of drinking and a lot of drugs, but it was a really great fun time, in the middle of all the craziness and all that, just time and place, right? It's like, and that was it. So anyway.
So you came of age in New York City, like in the late 70s, mid to late 70s. So that was sort of contemporaneous with the explosion of punk scene and all that kind of crazy stuff going on the Lower East Side. Maybe you could give us a little sketch of your story there and how you got started with drinking and how you got sober like 300 years ago and how that's been going.
It's like Mel Brooks' 2,000-year-old man, right? I'm 63. Grew up in Queens, in Forest Hills. It's sort of like a neighborhood in Queens. And drinking was, we drank in the parks, and it was like, it really started with weed because, you hung out in the park, you smoked weed. The drug dealer didn't care if you were 13, and
gateway drug.
What?
Proof it's a gateway drug.
Yes, marijuana, the devil's lettuce. Yes, and that's just what we did. And we smoked weed, we drank beer, we threw up, and we went home, and then did it all again. The next Friday night, and it was when I think about it, I have some friends from still back in the day. I don't know if you saw me post about my junior high school reunion is trying to get a hold of me.
Yeah.
And I so don't want to be a part of that. And I'm just they sent an email asking for a blurb on the last 50 years of our life, and it was like,
limited to 2 sentences.
I was like, yeah, so weed in the park on Yellowstone Boulevard, heroin in the Lower East Side, and then but I have I still have some friends from back then, and they aged out. You hear like a lot of times like people talk about aging out, and they I didn't. I guess that's the difference. But it was like that. I was and I was that kid growing up. I'm like a 60s and 70s kid, and if they had medicated kids back then like they do today, I would have been on, here's the list. I have ADD, I have this, I have that. People said maybe I should see if I'm on the spectrum, like whatever. And it's like, yeah, okay, but it was kind of innocent. It's just what my friends did. It's just what we, it was like that. Forest Hills and Queens, there's a connection in how I got into that scene. And it wasn't me, but it was older brothers of friends hung out and grew up with like the Ramones. They were like the neighborhood band. So, right. My friend Bob's brother Jeff was like buddies with them, and that's cool. Yeah, and like Forest Hills High School and all that. I was out there about, I don't know, maybe about 7-8 years ago with a friend of mine, and they renamed outside of Forest Hills High School, they renamed it Ramones Way, And we used to hang out and cut class and smoke weed out in front of Forest Hills High School and whatever, and listen to the Ramones, but those older brothers, we would hang out in their apartment, and Jeff would play records for us, and it was like, you kid growing up, you're listening to Led Zeppelin or whatever, and it's like, now, next thing I say, here, check out this album. Here's like this Patti Smith record, and like my little 15-year-old brain just went like, just like, what is this,
It cracks the universe open when you hear that first record.
And so many of them, and it's funny when I got when I was getting sober in Queens in the beginning, it was a guy who helped me a lot who went to Grand Wizard Public School with Johnny Thunders, so it was just like there was a lot happening. Oh, lost an earbud in the neighborhood, But, it was hanging out, and I found that I liked drugs, and I found out if I went downtown, they didn't care, that I wasn't 18. They let me in the bars, they let me in the clubs,
right.
And it was, I saw bands now that people, I saw them all. I saw all these great bands, and we weren't thinking like, wow, how cool is this? It was just
another band.
It was just another band, and we're just getting high, and it was.
I was wondering, when you're in the middle of a scene like that, and all these bands, like the Ramones and everything, are you conscious of the fact that this is like a cultural moment? That something very different is going on down here than just like going to see bands. That it's like changing the culture in some way.
No, I wasn't. It was a small scene. Like downtown back then was like it was a small town, and it was cheap rent, it was cheap drugs. And it was everybody, it's like you would go to a show, and it was like everybody and all the other bands hanging out, seeing their friends, and I came in towards the end of that, like that started happening like sort of mid 70s, and I showed up like 77, 78. So, but like I knew people, like, it's, I knew people, so it was kind of like that. But yeah, it was just, we're just doing our thing, There was a lot happening though, because it wasn't just music, and for me, having lived long enough to be able to look back and just like have that sort of gift of perspective that I have now, it's like, oh wow, because it was music, it was literature, it was art, it was like all happening. Because you get an apartment with 4 of your friends for $138 a month, and get a stupid little copy shop job, and then go do your thing, and
right.
Yeah, so
you could survive. You could survive back then because the rents were like normal. I mean, 8 years later in the Bronx, I think when I had to pay $400 a month for an apartment, I was scandalized that it was so much.
$400 a month to us, it was like, you're living, you're living uptown, like living large,
right.
My last apartment, before everything fell apart, we were paying Second Avenue, on 2nd and B, old 2nd and B, and we were paying $184 a month. And there were 4 or 5 of us in that apartment at any given time,
Wow.
And, and sometimes we couldn't make the rent,
Back then, you still had enough money for drugs. Like today, you couldn't live down there and be addicted to drugs. It would be too expensive.
No, back then I was, it's funny. I had clients down the block, and when I go down there, it's like unrecognizable to me. And it's like my old joke is like, where does a kid go buy a bag of heroin on the street these days?
Not to buy heroin anymore.
I mean, now you call a number and somebody on a electric bike brings it to your front door. I guess.
I don't understand that. We had on 3rd. It was like a supermarket. I was there for those days. There was like a hole in the wall. You put the money in the wall, bag came out. Down the street, there was a bucket that came down. You threw money in a bucket. It was just, and
simpler back then.
But it was like
much simpler.
Yeah, but it was like, fuck, how we got out, is a thing, right?
So, at what point did it stop being fun and start being like
you crossed the line at some point where you woke up one day and you realized you were
living in the Shangri-La of the Lower East Side, seeing punk bands, and then one day you're like, fuck, I'm addicted to heroin.
When does that
the fuck, like, this is horrible, happened when my family decided they didn't want to see me do it anymore, and they got a hold of me. I mean, I knew things were horrible. I knew things were falling apart. I talk about this a lot. I couldn't put it together like that. It was like the drinking and the drugs, like, because, there was a lot of that was like before I ever picked up, like, I was like that problem kid, weed may have been my first gateway drug. My second gateway drug was I didn't go to school for junior year.
Right.
And it was like, so, I mean, there was problems all along. I just couldn't get to clarity. But, it was like I said, like 19, like that was 1978, and it was great, but it was already like, I wasn't living good. I mean, I was, it was, I couldn't not drink. I couldn't not pick up whatever drug I was into at the time.
And you couldn't work? I mean, at the time, probably because if you're just focusing on getting the drugs, then you sort of stuff starts to fall apart around you even worse, right?
Yeah, but but it was like, I had stupid little jobs, right? It was like, I worked at the copy shop. It's like, it's like, I can handle that. I was a bike messenger, and like that was fine.
I did that job.
Yeah.
That's easy, fast money.
Easy, fast money. It was great. Got paid. Got paid at the end of the week and ready to go. My last job. It was the summer I got sober. Before I got sober in November, but it was like that summer. I was working as a food vendor. A friend of mine worked there and brought all of us down. Like my little crew we're all working for this guy Lenny. And I sold hamburgers off a cart in front of the Time Light building on 50th and 6th Avenue, and I did that for 4 hours a day, and I got $50 or $60 cash at the end, which at 1981 was
that's a lot of money.
Like money, and that was money to get my bag of dope in the morning, go to work, get my bag of dope after work, and and it was like that. So it's it's like we find a way, right? We however it is, we find a way.
Did you have a conscious, like for me, like in the 80s, right? I was into the Grateful Dead, and I would follow them around, and the whole subculture revolved around like drugs and everything. So, it was very easy for me to sort of justify what I was doing, because I'm like, I'm part of this subculture and of artists and everything, and that's all great. And we just we do drugs. Like was that like something that was giving you a justification to keep going, like it did for me, like because I was involved in all this kind of stuff?
Absolutely. It was like that was the scene. It was like I was listening to Dopey a couple weeks ago with Dante Ross, and they were talking about it, and they were talking about music back then, and he was talking about junkie rock, and those bands, like that scene. It was like Johnny Thunders, and it was Richard Hell, and it was all these people, and like it was all. Like it was just part of what you did, it was like, it's like that was the thing, and, it's like, so. Yeah.
Was there a straight edge scene in punk back then, or was that something that came later?
That came after. That came after.
Okay.
That was like, it was like the New York hardcore thing. Started like 81, 82. I was already sober by then, but like I knew people in that scene, and like that was like the Beastie Boys, who were started out as a punk band,
right?
And it was like that. It's funny. I have a buddy who lives around the corner from me, who I know from AA, and he talks about it as he was a straight edge kid from New Jersey, and I tell him you should thank my scene who came right before you, because like we were the inspiration for you straight edge guys. Like you looked at us and said, like, look, these people, they're all fucked up. Like we don't want that. So
there's so many. Sorry. There's just so many weird different strains that come together inside that musical movement. Cause you got this whole like Krishna rock, thing, like the Cro-Mags were into that. And then you have like the straight edge scene. And then you have just the gutter punk thing. And it's just all these weird streams converging at the same time. Just, you don't really see that in a lot of other musical subcultures.
Yeah, they are. And it's funny, like, the punk thing, it was like back when I was in it, like, it was like, punk was just any band that played CBGBs or Maxes. They just got lumped with that label, and it was like, there was like the Talking Heads and the Blondies and the Ramones and, Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers. And they're all like, musically, they're all like very different, I mean, but it was, and I think that divergence that you're talking about happened after. It was like we got into, when that was happening, we're starting to get into like the noise and no wave kind of thing. There was like Sonic Youth and Lydia Lunch and Suicide and like those bands, which was like very different than, and we were, it was, I wouldn't say it was older, like the hardcore kids, a lot of it was, like CB started like the all ages matinee, so like it was, I think it was
aggressive stuff. right? That was like, I remember the hardcore scene in the 90s. There was a lot of tough guy stuff that I didn't relate to.
Oh, no.
It was interesting.
Yeah, it was like, I mean, we were into like art and literature and film, and it was, it was that hardcore. It was young guys starting to feel their testosterone, and and it was like that, So,
but the dancing was just punching each other in the face, not really dancing, beating the shit out of people.
Yeah, it was funny. I was working for a little while. I worked for my family. We had my family has a uniform business that goes back to like 1892. Started by my great grandfather. And my cousin's running it now. And we branched off and we started getting to like military surplus and that. So we opened a store on Broadway and Astor Place. And there was like Unique and Canal Jeans and all those stores. Like they were like the coolest stores to shop. And we were on that block. And there was a kid who lived with his parents in the loft upstairs who was into that scene. I used to talk to him, and he was like, yeah, I just go, I get my aggression out,
It's a positive outlet of negative energy. I've been explaining that to Noah, my 12-year-old. He's just getting into music, and I'm into a lot of different music, but like part of my soul is like hardcore music, metal, Sepultura, Pantera, all that kind of stuff, hardcore music from the 90s. So when I play it for him, I have to preface it because he wasn't used to hearing that stuff. I'm like, no, that guy is screaming on the tape because I don't want to. Right. This is like, it's this positive outlet of negative energy. And I think for a lot of kids, that's exactly what purpose it serves.
Yeah, sure.
Makes you feel like, get it ahead.
So let's go back to the 70s again for a minute. So you're selling hamburgers at this cart, and life is shitty, and all of a sudden you decide, or maybe your family decides for you, that it's time for a change. Yeah. So maybe walk us through how that change happens.
So how the change happens, and just to back a little bit, my first treatment, or not treatment, but my first was that year when I stopped going to school. I thought nobody knew, right? I thought they would never notice. Like, this kid hasn't showed up for like junior year, So they I ended up in a TC, I ended up in a therapeutic community, and it was I was there for 9 months. It was one of these Synanon Phoenix House type spin-offs where and and it was kind of crazy, and the population was people who had been sent there by their parole or probation officers, and fucked up kids from Forest Hills High School, smoked too much pot and cut class. So what could go wrong, right? And so I it was like, that didn't work. But what happened was, I would disappear for my family. I lost touch with my family for like months at a time, but there was still a couple cousins of mine who I was friendly with, who I was in touch with, and I would smoke weed with them. And my family knew it was bad. They didn't know how bad it actually was, but it got to the point like I couldn't not go out drinking without ending up in the hospital in the ER to get my head sewed up or whatever. And I would hit them up for money, like the thing we do, right? And
right.
Yeah, and they arranged an intervention. So it was like one day, I'm there and I'm in my mom's car, and I don't know, it's Saturday morning, so I didn't know I was out of it. I was barely, and I'm like, and I'm like, where are we going? It's like we're going to New Jersey. And we end up in his room, and there's my uncle and one of my cousins are in there with this guy, and they had, in AA they talk about we have the desire to stop drinking, right? And it was like, for me, it was my family had a desire for me to stop drinking, and I was like, huh, this is kind of odd. And, they were telling me the stories about how, like 1 year at Passover, you showed up all bloody for the Seder and, you stole the bottle of booze we were saving for the wedding. This stuff that goes on in an intervention, and I was like, huh, and truthfully, like, I didn't care. What happened was my mom gave me a carton of Marlboros and said, like, that's it, we're done. Like, we can't do this anymore.
Go with God.
Yeah. And it was like, and it was like, we can't watch this, and if you die, it's going to break our heart. And if you get well, that's great, but it just can't keep going. And my thing was like, I feel like crap. I don't know where I am. I have cigarettes for a week. I'll play the game. I'll get, I'll sleep it off. I'll whatever, and then I'll leave. And I'll go back and go on another run. But I had a couple of days, and what happened is, like, somehow. One of the things I love listening to when people talk about their journeys and their stories or whatever is I love hearing what happened, like that moment of like how to go from one day, like I'm sitting here flipping burgers on a cart and getting high and like just thinking that's my life to, and and it was like, it just something got my attention, it was just like, I had like 5 packs of cigarettes left. It's like halfway through, I'm just saying I'm starting to feel like crap, but it was like, like I'm 22 years old. Like, how did I end up here? And, it wasn't, there wasn't any Shazams. There weren't any really ahas. It was just like, and
it ruins your high from then on. Yeah, I'll never forget. I mean, once you get that realization that you're screwing yourself up, but you still want to use, it just ruins it.
Yeah, and it was just like, and it's funny. I think I know, like, it got me like right before it would have gotten like really bad, as bad as it was. And I mean, there was consequence, like I had OD'd, I had done things that, like I'm not going to talk about in a family podcast, and, but it was kind of like, if it didn't get me then, like I don't know about the counterfactual stuff. Like, you're like, if like I hadn't gotten sober then, like I would have died. You hear that and like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I would still be here or not. But I mean, I think it really got me. Like, there are moments that we don't realize what they are until we can, like, have a life and look back at them and like, oh man, like that was a moment, and right. And yeah, so, it was just that, one of the things that got me too was, there was a woman who worked at the place I was in, who was my counselor. And I that was a Saturday when they took me there, and I met her on like a Monday, I guess. She was off for the weekend, and we were talking, and I'm looking at her and like who are you? Like, you're like, you whatever. And she started talking to me a little bit, and she told me like she had gotten sober in New York when she was 23 years old, downtown. I think she was sober like 20 years at the time, but it was like, it's that got my attention too. Cause like, like
she gets it, right? Well, she's not just,
she got it. And, she knew the places I was talking about, Like she knew those streets. We were talking, like we were talking, and she talked about Perry Street. It was like this sort of famous meeting downtown, like this little AA room. And she told me, I went to this place, Perry Street. Like she said, when you leave here, maybe go there. I'll take good care of you.
That's identification. I always talk about. Like something you identify with.
And I don't know if you have heard Jack Grisham talking about the punk stuff. Jack was he was and is still the singer in this band TSOL. They're an 80s punk band, and he's been sober, clean a long time, and he I'm not breaking. He talks about it. But he talked about when he got here about the identification. He said, I don't know if I wanted what you guys had but I got you guys had what I had, and it was like, because I had seen counselors and shrinks and all, the whole time, like before, like I'd seen tons of those people, and it was always somebody talking at me, and,
So what was it that you think made the difference at that point? Because I'm also fascinated by that moment, because I had a million moments where I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I can't do this anymore. And then one moment was the moment.
You turn it over.
I think somewhere deep inside, I knew that, that here was an opportunity for something to change, for something different. I couldn't put a word on it. I couldn't give it a name. It's like funny, like AA people said, "Oh, it was your God, that was your higher power." And like, I don't know, I'm an atheist, so I don't know what that is, But when I hear people describe it, I think it's the same for all of us who get this. We just describe it differently, right?
Right. Hard to describe. It's so inside of your time.
Yeah, because it wasn't like, because like that the day before, I wasn't thinking like, wow, I really need to stop. I really need to stop this. I was probably thinking about like, how do I get high tomorrow? Like,
how do I keep it going?
And it was like, and then it was just like, I don't know. I mean, it was just, I was done. I talked to a lot of people who were trying, to get clean or whatever. And the one thing, like I tell people, I can't give you done. Like I don't know what that looks like. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to give. I don't know how to give that to you. I don't know how to give done to anybody. I think we just all get, if we're lucky, we get to a place where we have that.
And you got to find your own done.
And then where we go with it is another thing, because some of us stay done and some of us don't. Right. Right. But it's like grabbing a hold of that. I think is a really powerful thing for us. If we can get it.
So you got sober when you were
22
mm-hmm. years old.
Yep.
And you've been sober since?
Like 10 years, right?
What?
You've been sober for 10 years.
Yes.
He's coming up on his 10th anniversary.
You're almost 40.
Yeah. On Zoom, nobody knows this is a mason jar full of vodka. No, it isn't, folks. No. I was, friends of mine, like people like, oh, it's like you got sober when you were 12, right? I'm like, yeah.
But I mean, that's, I mean, to me, I could never understand how people could quit and then stay quit for, decades. Right. I kind of see it a little bit more now coming up on, the 4 years where, it's like the compulsion's gone, the desire is gone. The new life is so good that going back to the old one just isn't appealing in any way, but still, like when you're 22 in New York City, things are like popping. I was in the city over this, a few days ago, and I was thinking to myself, man, if I was 22 and I was here, there was no way, way I could stay sober in this environment. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, how did you do that?
Yeah. What happened? And I talked a little bit on the Discord. when we were talking about that. I was out in New Jersey for a year. I was in a rehab for 7 weeks. They were trying to figure out what to do with me. They knew they couldn't really send me back home just yet. It was New Year's Eve, 1981 was my last night in there. They were just, and they actually sort of had a place for me before, but they didn't want to like set me loose like on New Year's. And then they got me into a halfway house, and I was
still in
Jersey, out in like Plainfield, New Jersey. I don't know, couldn't point it out to you on a map now if I had to,
Jersey all looks the same.
Yeah, it's all,
It's one big.
So I was out there and I was in the halfway house for however long. And then I when I left the halfway house for a couple of months, I stayed out there. I got a room in the town just because it was, I had a little bit of a community out there, and, I did the thing, back then, like, there was nothing else but AA, really. I mean, so like I went to AA, I went to meetings. I was the youngest person there by 5 years, 8 years, whatever. And it's like when you're 22, that's a lot, it's like, but, it was like I made a couple of friends. I hooked up with a couple of people, I got a sponsor who was 26, so he was young enough, and like I hung out with him and his girlfriend in his car, driving to meetings around New Jersey, and we just talked, and so I had a little bit of that buffer, like from not being down there in the scene. Because if I had gone,
you didn't run right back to the Lower East Side.
If I had gone to Second Street, it would have been, we wouldn't be talking right now. It was like, it would not have happened. And when it came time to move back, I was like, okay, my time in New Jersey was done. It was great. It like really helped me out. But I didn't go back downtown. I moved back to Queens because it felt safer, to me.
Yeah.
That was, what happened there, it was, it was still hard. It was hard being young. It was like, it was like, God, I'm like 23 years old. I'm sitting in this church basement on a Saturday night in Forest Hills. Like, this kind of sucks, This isn't what I planned, But what was really fortunate there, and kind of what saved me, was there was young people, there were like, and a lot of us, it was like out there, and also like I started like hitting like the scene downtown, the AA meetings downtown. There was a big meeting, and there was like NA. We'd go to NA on Saturday nights. Midnight Madness on St. Mark's Place.
That is its own scene.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
Oh, yeah,
that's a big social scene. Those meetings on St. Mark's. There was a place on 14th Street. It was like the whole building.
I mean, They moved to 12th Street. That's condos now. The 14th Street.
Okay.
But it was it's like I met people my age, and who were into what I was into, and we went to shows and went to movies, and a lot of the people were the people who had come out of that scene that I got out of, and we didn't lose that interest, but we learned how to do it. We learned how to go see a band without having to get fucked up.
That's so important, to be able to do that.
Yeah, and especially being young, because it was like, it's like and it was more so like, I'd go to meetings and I had a roommate in rehab, this guy, Frank. He was a nice guy, but he was the vice president of a bank, and he had been divorced 3 times and lost the house and the boat, and it was like, I never had anything. I had like the clothes on my back, and I was like, what is this? And, and we it's I was talking about this yesterday with people. Like I got socialized in AA. Like AA socialized me. Like the older people, like they were like, they taught me like how to show up on time. Like they gave me the keys to the church to make coffee. And like, you have to be here, like, because if these people don't have their coffee, they're going to be pissed at you, right? So it's how I showed up here at 9 o'clock. At 9 o'clock, it was, I learned to like, show up where I'm supposed to be when I'm supposed to be there. There was it's funny. There was a nun at this meeting that I went to, and she was sort of like well known in AA circles. I'm like this Jewish kid from Forest Hills. I'm sitting hanging out talking to this nun, and and I had a potty mouth. I still have one, and like I'm standing outside Our Lady Queen of Martyrs on Washington Street, like dropping F-bombs, and I turn around and hear Sister Maurice like giving me this glare, right? And I knew at that moment my friends who went to Catholic school felt. But what she was also taught me was like how to present myself, and how to like, like I don't have to like drop an F bomb every other word in a conversation, and then, I got to be, I got to do all that dumb shit we do in our 20s, but I got to do it sober, which was kind of interesting because I didn't have alcohol to blame it on. Because we do dumb shit in our 20s, right? But it's like, you're like, yeah, okay. It's like I was drunk, I did the stupid thing, but I'm 24, and it was like, oh no, I did this stupid thing, and now I have to take a look at like, why am I doing this? Like, what is it I'm doing? And
Allan, I just wanted to say before I leave the thought, everything you're just talking about, that whole experience with AA, and you can go to the NA meetings, and they put you on a little bit of a schedule. Like, I think that doesn't get talked about enough. We do focus a lot on like the letter of the book and the law and everything, but really everything you just described, that's really so important. And you can only really get that with these ubiquitous NA, AA, and it's not perfect, but they're showing you how to show up, with these little things that seem like overbearing. Like you have to show up at 9 o'clock and make the coffee, but I mean, it's really important, to do that.
Yeah. I learned discipline. You're right. I learned to, but AA was different back then. There was 20 years in the middle where my contact with AA was not a lot. I would go down to the meeting that used to be on Mark's Place. They moved. They had to move, and I would go meet a friend of mine there for the meeting and coffee like every other week. And that was like my AA for a long time, because when I came around, people weren't like quoting big book pages at me, and there wasn't that fundamentalism, and that has creeped in, and it may have been a reaction. Like it was funny, like the straight edge kids were a reaction to the junkie punks, and I think that was a reaction to, they blame it on, like the crusty old like fundamentalist people blame it on like treatment centers. It was like the treatment centers ruined AA. Like, I was ruining AA because I was young and I had done drugs and I had done this and I had done that. But it was more open-minded. It was like they gave me a book, like I had it, like I read it, but I was like, this is weird. Like who's John Barleycorn and Ed Hogan? Like what are you talking about? And we would laugh at the language in the book, and it was what it was. I mean, however that changed, it changed, but it was different back then. People were, like I told my sponsor, like, I don't believe in God. He was like, that's okay. Like, what do you believe in? And it's like, I don't know. He goes, why don't you go find out? And it was that, it was, It's funny. NA was had just started up back in New York when I started going. It had been sort of gone for a long time, and it started reforming in the early '80s. And I knew some of those people helped start up in Queens. I went to those meetings, and they were harder on me than the AA people, because they were like, "Oh, you're just a kid, and you hadn't been to." You hadn't been to jail and you haven't OD'd 9 times and you're just, you were just tripping and all that. There was
you didn't earn your
I didn't,
seat. Did
I
you get
earned my stripes, and and it was like, kind of like, it's like, "Hey, Allan, what's up? How you doing?" I in the beginning, I learned more. After, like, the meetings were great. For me, it was like I learned more and got more out of just hanging out in a diner or a coffee shop after. And
so it was the community more than it was the rigidity of the program.
Oh, absolutely.
Because my next question obviously is, how does an atheist survive in AA, which is ostensibly a spiritual organization? All the steps deal with God this, God that, and God the other thing. But I seem to be getting the sense from you that, like, they were kind of laid back about that stuff. They really believe that the only requirement was a desire to stop drinking, not that you believe in a higher power. But how did you navigate that?
The people, there were people who stuck their finger in my face and said, "Get God or die." But like, that wasn't all of them, that wasn't the majority of them, and, I found the people I found, and it was like, it was, like I found, you talk about communities and I love communities, it was like, like I had my punk tribe, and then, I had like sort of my tech world tribe, and, I had my young people tribe in AA and all that. And I found the people, it's, I mean, there's a lot of people. There are a lot of people I found when I would, if I would be honest and not saying, like, I don't believe in God and you're idiots if you do. Like I had to learn how to
right.
We ain't making a battle. It's like, people come up like, yeah, me neither, or like, I don't know, like, I don't know if I believe in God, or I don't know if I believe in this, and and you find your people. There was there were a couple of agnostic meetings around the city. I didn't know about them. Excuse me. It was easier for me in the meetings in Manhattan than it was out in Queens to find those people who I could talk to about it. Because Queens is great, but it's Queens. It's a little bit more traditional.
Right.
And the thing they say is, like, take what you leave and lead the rest, right? And so I did that. And when Jim told me, my sponsor Jim, when he told me, we had that conversation, and he was a believer, whatever that is. But the funny thing is, I never knew what it was that he believed in. Like, he didn't talk about that. He was like, I knew he had a higher power. I knew he believed whatever he did, and that was fine, when he told me to go find out what it is, it gave me permission for myself to go out and find out what it is, So I read about Buddhism, and I saw, like, and I'm not a Buddhist, but like that, that language makes sense to me, and where the language of the big book doesn't make sense to me. But then I was able to see, like, how, like, wow, like, hey, maybe some of these things are talking about the same thing. It's like, for me, like, when it goes back to that moment, like that moment, aha moment we have, where we all describe it differently, but it's that same moment, right?
Exactly. Right. That moment, it's all the same. Like, the more you learn about it, you're like, oh, this is the same. This is the same as, it's a unifying idea.
Yeah. And it was like, it was, and, and it's funny, and I forgot because I'm old, but I'm sure it was brilliant. you know, yeah, you know, it's funny. I take care of my mom now. She has dementia, and it's, I was joking with, my partner that, talking to my mother now is like, it's like William Burroughs cut-ups, you know, because she talks about like the cat is in the river and there's noise outside and, what's for lunch?
Free association.
Yeah, and like that's kind of like it goes on my brain sometimes.
Yeah.
But you know, but that, you know, what? Oh, I was talking about it was like, you know, going back to like the old people. Like there was a thing out in Akron where Bob, who is Dr. Bob, right, who was one of the founders, they wrote their own literature like that. I've gotten into like the history of how stuff happened, and I met people who really know that. And like the people in Ohio, like they didn't want to know about that book. That was about Bill trying to make money. It was like the New Yorkers trying to like cash in, right? And they wrote their own. It was called the Akron Manual, and in one of them, I think I posted it up in Discord. They wrote like the I'm paraphrasing. It said, but you know, Buddhism with its 4 noble truths and eight whatever
the Eightfold
Path could be used as a complement or a direct replacement for the 12 steps of AA. This was Dr. Bob's home group wrote that.
Interesting.
You know,
wow.
You know, I'll send it to you. It's
I'd like to check that out.
So it's like, you know, like what they were one of the history people said the only thing that AA did with the 12 steps was put numbers on them, because all those practices have been around forever, you know, and they just
it's packaging and marketing,
and it's like they, you know, and it was a way for them to work for themselves, and you know, and like I don't believe all of it, and that's okay. You know, like now it's so much. I've had people like stick their finger in my face and go, "Get God or die," and if you don't stick around long enough, you're going to get it. And I'm like, well, maybe maybe when I'm sober 43 years, I'll get it. You know,
you're a living example that's
yeah. I'm not. You know, time. It's a Neil Young line which said time was just a joke, you know, and you know, you know, I live with someone who's sober 40 years, and sometimes we look at each other and we just laugh because it's like, you know, and because it's you know, time for me, it's not a big thing, but if I can use it to get somebody's finger out of my face, I will. You know, but like, you know, so it's like that.
I mean, with your longevity now in the program, like, you know, nobody's sticking their finger in your face today, I would imagine, right? I mean,
well, people don't, because I don't lead with it. Yeah, like my friends know, the people in meetings, like, you know, like they know, but like, you know, if I'm sitting in a Zoom meeting with a bunch of people from like wherever, like they don't know, like I don't, you know, I mean, you hear a lot of people go like, hi, I'm like, you know, I'm Jane and I'm sober. My sobriety date is this and my sponsor is that. My group is that. Like, I don't lead with that. You know, it's just like, who cares, you know? Like a newcomer, like, you know, when I was coming around, when I heard people talking about, I thought they were full of shit. You know, it's like, you're not sober 8 years or 20 years or 30 years. It's like, come on. You know? You know, so I mean, I get some pushback from some people, but I also get people going like, "Oh, thank you." You know, like I read people go like, "Oh, thank you," because like I don't know, like if I believe this stuff, and like you're like, you know, you're proof. I'm proof. You know. Yeah,
you're living proof, right?
Yeah.
And what's the alternative? Those guys that are still sticking their finger in your face, are they going to be like, "You're going to go out and drink"?
Yeah.
You know, after whatever 50 years or whatever it is, like.
And I'm like,
that's insanity.
And I'm like, yeah, okay. I mean, you know, probably not. You know, It's like, yeah, I mean, it's a day at a time, but my intention is like, I'm never going to drink again. And I tell people that, like I said, it's funny. Like one of the lines I love in the book, but I like to throw at them is like, they're talking about permanent sobriety. I mean, what AA has become, what 12-step has become, I think is very different from what they were doing back then. I think they were. I think they were just trying. They were just trying to like keep it together and help the next guy, however it is, help the next woman, however it is. And now in a lot of places it's become like this religion, and I don't think that was ever intended.
The fanatical religion side of it. You know what? There's a place for it for people who relate to that.
Yeah,
it's like anything else, but it doesn't. It's not. I don't know if it's the best approach for someone walking.
Once the doctrine ossifies and changing it meets with such resistance, then that's a problem because it's not 1930, right? I mean, it's like Christianity to some degree. It's like in 2,000 years things are going to change a little bit, and why AA should probably change too a little bit.
Yeah, I get in trouble because and this is to follow Bill Wilson in one of the things he wrote. He was an interesting guy, Bill Wilson. And if you read his later writings, he really opened up. But one of the things he wrote, he and again I'm paraphrasing. He goes like, our literature becomes frozen, and it's if I wanted to change it, I'd be crucified by like the fellowship I helped start.
Yeah, well.
Because and there's a thing that he wrote, and I'll send it's a letter he wrote or an article he wrote. He talked about. It was called The Dilemma of No Faith and whatever he said. And it goes, in the beginning, he goes, I almost ruined this whole thing with my spiritual arrogance. Because God, as I understood it, had to be for everybody. Right. And he goes, what I realized, like I was closing the door on like all these people, who like couldn't get that. And, so and now there's where I get in trouble. I like we need new books. Like we're sitting around reading a book that was written in 1939.
I think that's why it's important to read all of these books that we discussed. And
absolutely,
outside literature, quote unquote, that's the living program. Like that's the way I see it. The reason I got so crazy listening to books, it's because nature abhors a vacuum, and as far as I was concerned, there was a huge vacuum in the literature.
Yeah,
and that's why I think it's great to like do all of these book discussions.
Yeah, and I've told people where I get in trouble, I get fingers pointed at me. I said, we need new books. We don't have to replace the old ones. It's like keep the books. I mean, they're not going anyplace. But like, you think we can maybe come up with like a new book, like that addresses. That addresses people like me who came in young, who like maybe don't believe in God, who might be LGBTQ, who might be people of color, who might be, I have a friend, a really close friend up here, and they started 12-step AA meetings for autistic people. It's like, where's the literature that, because like we know so much, like God, like we know so much more than we did 80 years ago. I said, let's have some new books about that. And it's never going to happen because last year people lost their shit because they changed the preamble from men and women to people. and
last year they did that? Last year. Not like a few years ago?
Last year. Oh. And it was like they changed, and it was like it changed from AA as a fellowship to a fellowship of people. And there were people who were like, you're killing AA. with all this woke bullshit, you know?
AA is that fragile, really? Like, it's all going to collapse.
You know,
for being.
But what I tell people is like, you know what? I tell people, he said, I know I have a friend who goes, we're losing young people. And I'm like, yes, we are.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, like I'm here because I have friends. Like what happened, like I have a community. Like I have friends. Like I got the people I live with, you know, like the people my profession I had because of a friend of mine I got sober with, who I was sitting around watching David, like working on his computer in his apartment in Kew Gardens. I said, oh, I can do that. He goes, yes, you can. Come work for me. Right. So it's like, they're my friends, but like, I don't, that's why I'm here, you know? But you know, the pandemic's been great in a sense because it opened things up, you know, it opened up, you know, I found you guys because the pandemic, you started a podcast, and it's, what I love about this, it's community, right? Like you and Nat, Mike, you and Nat found each other and like said, hey, we can stay sober, right? Together. Yeah, exactly. You know, Bill Wilson and Bob Smith found each other in Akron and said, hey, we can stay sober together, right? You know, and there's different communities popping up. You know, I know people, there's a woman I know up here, and she's, you know, the pandemic was a hard time, and there's a lot of things happening, you know, like, you know, I don't want to get too much into but George Floyd happened, right? The George Floyd thing happened, and all that was going on in New York, and it was, you know, and there's a young, like I'm up in Inwood, so, you know, it's a very diverse community up here, Mike, you know, and there were people, there was a guy I know who came in and he was talking about how it affected him as a black man. And there were people on Zoom who told him like, that's an outside issue, you know? And he and a young woman I know here started, you know, a BIPOC meeting, you know, that's thriving now, you know? So it's, you know, people like, I believe like, you know, like we all found a way to get high. Like I found a way to get my drink and my drug, and people will find a way to like get their community and get like, and get a means to stay sober, you know, and there are options now, you know, if well, that's the thing. AA is not the monopoly anymore. There's all these other things available. Yeah. And I think that's great. I think that's the best thing that can happen for everyone. Because you know what will happen? The people who want like that old like 1939 AA, they'll have it. Yeah, that'll stay there. That'll be great.
It's still there.
It hasn't changed yet. It's probably not going to.
And you know, you know, and you know, like you know, the Monksters are doing the Monkster thing. The Dopey Nation is doing the Dopey Nation thing, and the Dharma Recovery people are doing the Dharma Recovery people thing. You know, and you know, it's all out there for people. Well, and it's a big tent, and you know the best recovery program is the one that works for you.
We can all help each other. We can all learn from each other. That's why I love the like ecumenical approach. It's like we can take from everyone. We can all learn about it, and in doing that, we come to the actual truth. Because this guy's opinion, that guy's opinion, this woman's opinion together, somewhere in the middle, like they say, the truth lies.
Yeah, and what works for me may not work for you. What may not work for you, and that's okay.
And that's okay, right?
You know, and
and we're comfortable with each other's happiness.
Yeah. It's like, you know, so it's you know.
All right, I think this is probably a good place to end it.
We're not going to do the documentary discussion this week.
Every time we have one of the Monksters on, it just becomes the conversation is just so interesting that I just don't want to stop and do the other thing. So this is good.
Now we got a show for next week too, so I'm feeling good about it.
I'm docued out. I was watching some last night. That's why I'm tired. I was up way too late. But that was the Take Your Pills documentary. Is that? Yeah, I heard you.
We're going to do
I watched that during the week. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to do Take Your Pills Adderall probably next week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Allan, I want to thank you for coming on. I think this was an awesome discussion. I think people really are going to get a lot out of it.
Thank you.
And, certainly an inspiration to the community with the amount of sober time you have and your insights. And I for one grew up with the sort of wry touch of cynicism, New York attitude. And so it really resonates with me in a lot of ways. Yeah. And I think with a lot of other folks too. So thanks very much.
You're welcome.
I'm going to stop the recording, but I'm going to ask you to just hang on a second because the files have to upload. And you still need to stay.
Yeah, let's do a New York meetup.
Yeah, for sure.
One day when you come down, we should do that. When you come down to the park, it's like it's just a train right away. It'll be.
I think we should get on that. We should get on that if we're going to have a West Coast in the fall. We should absolutely have an East Coast.
Yeah, I bet Liz would come down. Right.
Yeah,
I bet she would.
Yeah. That'd be great. Can't wait. Thanks so much, Allan. It's great to see you.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to stop the recording now. And we're back. So that was fun.
The Wizened one.
Allan. Good man. Lots of wisdom, lots of recovery wisdom in that guy.
Yeah, man. You guys get stories for days.
Does. Stories for days. And I have a story. You ready for that story? That story is called Recovery in the News.
Yeah. All right. Recovery in the news. Recovery.
You still can't hear it?
Recovery in the news, motherfucker.
You still can't hear that, can you? On your end?
I think it might be bleeding through your headphones, and that's what I'm hearing. Why? Because I'm completely off? Because it sounded like I was relatively on. Yeah. But we'll figure that out if we're going to continue with this Zencaster nonsense.
Which I think you're warming up to now that you have better equipment. Am I right?
So far. So then, I was thinking like maybe we could do the second half of the show after work and record it and then put it, but
Yeah, easy, Tiger. Yeah. It's one thing at a time.
Hang it out.
All right. So this news item has been floating around the internet for the last couple of days. I saw it on a variety of different news outlets, but I'm going to read the one from NBCnews.com. And under the mental health section of NBCnews.com, we have the following headline. Experimental drug for marijuana addiction shows promise. Small study finds.
Is it heroin?
That would be really an interesting medically assisted treatment for weed addiction.
Right off of
small amounts of heroin. As marijuana use in the United States reaches record highs among young people, you see what they did there? There is a growing need, get that, to address its potential for addiction, experts say.
Addiction.
An experimental pill, the first in a new class of drugs, has shown promise in treating cannabis use disorder, according to the results of a small trial published Thursday in Nature Medicine. The drug, known by the memorable name of AEF-0117, was found to reduce the perceived good effects of cannabis by up to 38% in a double-blind, randomized, controlled Phase 2A trial led by researchers at Columbia University.
I've seen this before.
Phase 2A typically means researchers are determining the proper dosage for the next stage of testing. So that's interesting. It's interesting because we have a cannabis use disorder diagnosis basis, which is the inability to stop using marijuana even when it causes significant disruptions to daily life, such as interfering with relationships or work. An estimated 14 million Americans struggled with cannabis use disorder in 2021. 14 million.
Did you know that cannabis use disorder is diagnosed as the inability to stop using marijuana, even when it causes significant disruptions to daily life, such as interfering with relationships or work?
Didn't I just say that?
Yeah, but I just wanted to say it.
Okay.
Because it's true. That's what cannabis use disorder is. I think you could say that about anything. Gaming is the same.
It seems like a really weird study and pill to take because, So you take the drug or placebo, right, for 5 days in a row. You take it at 9 o'clock in the morning, and then you smoke a controlled amount of cannabis 3.5 hours later. Like, here's your controlled amount of cannabis. And then you are asked questions like to rate on a scale, I feel high, or I feel a good effect. And you fill out that questionnaire like 5 times, from 20 minutes after smoking to 2 hours after. And the lower dose of the drug reduced the subjective good effects of cannabis by 19%, while the higher dose managed to reduce it by 38%. Now, that seems oddly specific to me. Like, I'm 38% less high than I would have been had I not taken this pill.
How do they calculate? It sounds to me like they're doing the whole Vivitrol thing with alcohol. Vivitrol is a drug used to block opioids, but it was developed to kill cravings for alcohol. And the same thing. What was Claudia Christian's the Schmuller method, or the Kandinsky? Sinclair, that's right. So the Sinclair method, Schmuller, that's the whole thing. It's like you take this pill, it reduces the positive feedback that your brain would normally get, and it causes pharmacological extinction, and then your body doesn't crave it. So maybe it's that kind of thing just for pot.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel 38% less high. Like,
it's
what does that even mean? Like, I'm 38% less high, so that means I can more easily stop using cannabis. It seems like
it's something only a scientist who's never smoked pot before would say.
It doesn't seem like it's that effective. I mean, maybe they're going to up the dosage in subsequent trials and stuff. I mean, I'm sure we're going to see more cannabis use disorder issues coming up as cannabis use increases. But I guess the pharmaceutical industry has never found a pill or a market they can't exploit with medication. But it just seems like, unlike Vivitrol or unlike naltrexone, which has a proven track record, like stuff like this, like just seems really weird and misplaced. Like 38% less high. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know.
Take. So where there's a chance to make money, the pharmaceutical companies will spend money developing it.
Yep.
And that's what it is.
That's capitalism.
I think that's pretty good. Sort of.
Yeah, close enough.
Yeah. Sorry,
that's
guys.
all right.
We're working.
Well, you've wasted another perfectly good hour and a half listening to Mike and Nat in the morning.
Well, that about does it for today. I know I had a great time. Did you?
Yeah, today was a good one.
Thank you so much for listening. Alan, thanks for joining us. Visit us at middleagesrecovery.com, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, and Twitter. So tweet us a twat. You twit. Support your favorite show. That's us. Drop a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Podbean has reviews. You can give us a rating on Spotify. We appreciate you. Find us at the Inner Sanctum, where Alan and Liz and Melissa and everybody and Kyle, and now I'm going to get in trouble for not mentioning people. Grant, the whole crew is on the Patreon Discord. It's patreon.com/recovery in the Middle Ages. Come and join us. If you want to dip your toe in the shallow end first, facebook.com. Look us up. There's a private recovery group, a lot of great people in there. Come and say hello. The best way to help the show is share it with a friend. So if you like what we're doing here and want to support the RMA movement, share it with a friend. And as we say, non proficiat perfectum. What is that?
Oh, progress, not perfection.
See you next time.
Stay fresh, cheese bags.
Be good. Whatever that means to you.